Hello, good morning, everyone. I think people are still coming in, so maybe we wait a couple of minutes before we begin. Chúng ta share screen lâu mày nó. Nhưng mà khuyên biểu nó.
Ok, dạ họ.
Venerdì la mattina. Venerdì, no?
Dạ, quên đi đi để.
Ok, đã rồi. Để chơi
Dạ,
sau.
bà dạ, bọn nên ai thôi.
Ok, đã rồi. Sao nó giả bị thế này nó? Cái chuyện nó giả bị. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to see you again. And you can keep on the camera if you want to. You can turn it off for your security or convenience. This is up to you. Of course, I'm happy to see some faces. It makes it a bit easier. I'm not sure whether you all received the PDF, the file of last lesson. I sent the PDF file so you can have a look at it again, save it on your computers or phones. If it didn't work, we will check again. So, second lesson today, I want to give you a very short, very basic overview of what linguistics is, linguistic categories. What do we do in linguistics? And we will begin today with general overview, general remarks, which means mostly English data. And then the lesson on Friday will be application of this in Burmese and other languages in Myanmar and Southeast Asia. So first, general overview. What is linguistics about? What do we do in linguistics? For many of you, this may be trivial, easy. For some of you, it may be something new. And of course, you will have time to ask questions at the end of the lesson. It's a bit difficult maybe for you to ask during the lesson because I cannot see everyone. So I cannot see if you're raising your hands or trying to say something. ဒါဆိုမေးစရာရှိရင်ဆရာတင်ပြီးမှမေးလို့ရတယ်နော်အခုဂျားထဲမှာနည်းနည်းခက်မှထင်တယ်ဆရာကအကောင်မမြင်ရလို့ဘယ်သူမေးချင်လဲမသိရလို့အမေးစရာရှိရင်တကယ်ပြောလို့ရတယ် Okay, linguistics. What do we do? A few keywords, categories that we look at, and which I will tell you what it is today. We have phonology, which is about sounds of a language. There is morphology, which is about the form of words. Then syntax is about how we put words together to make sentences. Then on the other hand, there is semantics, which is about meaning of words and meaning of expressions. What do we mean when we say something? Similar to semantics, but still different, is pragmatics. Pragmatics is about how we use language, what we actually do with language. And we will see a few examples today in English for all of this. And then the final part, the lexicon. You all may know lexicon as a book, like a bidin. But this is not what lexicon in linguistics is about. Lexicon is something we have in our heads. And finally, we look at two kinds of doing linguistics, two aspects of linguistics, diachronic and synchronic. Diachronic means we look at a language during different times. We look how a language changes over time. In synchronic linguistics, we look at how languages work now. We look at the present state of languages. So this may be very abstract for you if you just see this now, but now let's go to examples right away, which would make things easier then to understand. Phonology. A phone is a sound in the language that is important to make differences in meaning. So phonology is about phones. It is about the sounds and especially the sound system of a language. In phonology, we look at what sounds does a language have, what sounds are important to make a difference in a language. And sounds here means consonants, it can be vowels, it can also be tones in some languages, it can be stress. In some languages, stress is important. In others, tones are important. So we look at what sounds does a language have. We also look at how do these sounds behave? Where do we find different sounds? So just to start with a very simple example, in English, there are the two words to and do. To and do are different only in the sounds d and t. So if I mispronounce do and say to, I get the wrong meaning. People may not understand me. That means in English, the difference between d and t is important. You have to make this difference to keep the meanings apart. This is only true at the end of a word. So if you look at bad and bat, you all know the word bad, which means not good, sore. This is different from a bat with a T at the end. Bat is an animal that looks like a mouse but flies like a bird. So it's important to make the difference between bad and bat. In other languages, you do not have the difference of D and T at the end of the word, but maybe at the beginning. Then similarly, in English, zip is not the same as zip. Zip is the thing that you use to, that you have on your trousers, for example, to close your trousers. And sip means have a drink. You can sip a beer or a coffee. So z and s are different in English. You have to keep them apart, otherwise people may not understand you. On the other hand, if you look at the words port and sport, the P there does not sound the same. Port and sport. So in port, you pronounce it like pa. In sport, you pronounce it like pa. But this difference is not important in English. There is no word port that would be different from port. There is no word sport that is different from sport. So pa and pa are not important to distinguish meaning in English. They just occur in different positions. After S, you always get pa, and plain beginning of the word, you always get pa. So this is true for English. In English, the difference DT is important. The difference pa, pa is not important. In other languages, this may be different. If you look at your neighbor, Thai, which is also true for other languages in the area like Shan and of course also Burmese. So in Thai, if you say the word pa, this means aunt. An aunt who is older than your parents. So older sister of your father or older sister of your mother. Pa, we pronounce with the pa at the beginning. But the word pa with pa means a cloth. So in Thai, the difference between pa and pa is important. If you go to visit your aunt, you do not go to look for cloth. So in Thai, aspiration is important. Aspiration means the difference between pa and pa, like what I write here with the small h. That means you have p and h combined. So Thai and English are different in their phonologies. Then if you look at Chinese, in Chinese you have the word ma, which means mother, and this is different from ma, which means horse. That's only a difference in tone. Ma, ma. Of course, it makes a difference if you talk about your mother or a horse. In English, this is not important. You can say mother or mother. It still means one of your parents. So in Chinese, tones are important, and tone means pitch, like high or low, and contour, rising, falling. In English, this is not important. Then in Mon, a language spoken in southern Myanmar, as you hopefully know, you have a difference between pa, which means a week, and pa, which means a gong, like the music instrument. So in Mon, you have pa, pa. This is called phonation. Like in gong, pa, the voice is breathy. You have a lot of breath comes out when you speak it. Again, this is not important in English. In English, you can say dog or dog. It still means the same animal. In Mon, this is different. So this means each language has its own phonological system. Each language has a specific set of sounds that are important to make differences in meaning. And these systems are not the same across languages. And for linguists, it's interesting then to compare these sound systems. Now, when we do phonology in linguistics, of course, we have to have a way to write all these different sounds. And for this, there is the IPA, or International Phonetic Alphabet. You have the link here, and I will send the PDF again. You can check this link. This is a website where you have all these symbols, and you can click on them and listen to the sounds. So I will use IPA for many of the examples, and I will always also read them out to you so you can connect the sounds and the symbols. This may be easiest for you, of course, in Burmese or other languages you speak. You don't have to learn this all by heart, but it's good to know that this alphabet exists and it's very useful in linguistics. You can also use this on your phone, of course. You can, if you use Android phones, I think it also works on iPhones, you can download IPA keyboard and write all these funny symbols. Now, the next category in linguistics is morphology. Morphology is about the structure or the form of words. We can distinguish two kinds of morphology. First is inflection, which is about how words change in the grammatical context, how words change in a sentence, when they're used in a sentence. So in English, if you say I walk and you change I to he or she, third person, you have to add this S. Morphology tells you about how to adjust words to make them usable in a sentence or in any given context. Similarly, you have walked and walking. Walk, walked, walked, walking all have the same meaning. It's all the same word, basically, but used in different contexts. So this we call inflection. Derivation is also morphology, but derivation makes a new word. From a word that you already have, you can make a new word. So you have the word love, which you'll understand, I'm sure. From this, you can add li and make lovely. Lovely is a new word. It's not the same as love, but it's related. The meanings are similar, but it's not the same. So you can say, I love her, but you cannot say, I lovely her. But you can say, your girl, your daughter is lovely. Then you have other derivations like beloved or lovable or a lover. These are all new words made from the word love by derivation. Now, in order to do morphology, if we talk about words, structure of words, the form of words, we have to know what is a word. This is easy, you all know what the word is, right? That alone. But what is one word? So in English, blackboard, we all agree that this is one word, right? It's one compact meaning. You cannot separate it. You cannot add very, like this is a very blackboard. It doesn't work here because blackboard belongs together. It's one unit. And it's also written together in English. So yeah, it's one word. But what about the bus driver? A bus driver is written in two words. But still, in terms of linguistics, it's only one word. If you say a big bus driver, what is big? The bus or the man who drives the bus? In English, it's a big bus driver. The driver is big and not the bus. So this is still one word, but written in two words with a space in between. Similarly, English teacher, the person who teaches you English. This is also one word, and you can hear it from the stress. It's English teacher. The stress is only on English. It's not English teacher or English teacher. So one word, one stress. A bit more difficult maybe is the case with can't, cannot, and don't, do not. They are the same thing basically. But can't is one word, cannot is two words, and you can see it from their behavior in syntax. So you say, can't you come? But you do not say, cannot you come? There you have to say, can you not come? You have to separate them. So can't is one word, cannot is two words, but it's written like one in English. So how it's written in English does not always tell you whether it's one or two words. So it's not always easy to define what is a word in a language. On Friday, we will see some examples from Burmese, where I think it's also not very clear sometimes. Then syntax. Syntax is how we put together words to make sentences, to make longer expressions. So if you say the dog is eating a bone, you have the dog is subject, then the verb eating, and a bone is the object. So in English, the normal order of putting things together is subject, verb, object. You can also say things like rice he doesn't like. This means you have object, subject, and then the verb at the end. This you do when you want to stress the object. Like rice he doesn't like, but noodles he likes a lot. So there is some variation. You can change the word order a bit, but there are limits. Like in English, you cannot say he rice doesn't like. Like subject, object, verb is not possible in English. This is marked with this little star, with the asterisk. That means not possible, wrong. No one would say that in English. No native speaker would say that in English. So syntax tells you how to put together words to make bigger expressions. Then briefly, semantics and pragmatics. I said semantics is about the meaning of words and expressions. We already had this example on Monday. If I say, it is hot in this room, semantically, according to the meaning of the words, I give information about the temperature in this room. This is the semantics. This is the meaning of the expression. Pragmatics, on the other hand, is what I want to do with that. In most cases, if someone says it is hot in this room, the aim of this, the thing that people want to say, is not give information about the temperature, but it is a request for someone to open the windows. If you live in a cool country, if you live in a hot city like Mandalay, it is hot in this room would rather mean please turn on the aircon. If there is electricity at the moment, of course. So semantics is about the literal meaning, and pragmatics is about what you want to do. And of course, this may be very different for different people. So some people may understand what I mean, others may not understand what I mean when I say it's hot in this room. Individual speakers have different backgrounds, different use of language, and this sometimes makes communication a bit difficult. The last category we have here is the lexicon. I already told you in the beginning, lexicon is not a big book with vocabulary lists or definitions. lexicon is something that speakers have in their head. It's the list, it's the source of all sounds with their meanings, all the combinations of sound and meaning pairs. And this includes words, it also includes fixed expressions like idioms, and it includes patterns of how to put words together. So this all has to be somewhere in the head of the speakers. You all have access to the lexicon of the languages you speak. The lexicon, what you have stored in your brains, gives you or lists the information about all the items. It tells you the meaning of an item you have in your brain. It also tells you whether it's a noun or a verb or a preposition, so you know how to use it. And it also stores knowledge about the grammar. So in English, you have go, you have the sound g, o, go, together, and this is associated with the meaning dware. You have this in your brain. But when you want to speak about go at some point in the past, then you also have to know or take from the lexicon that you don't say goed. Yesterday I goed to the market, but I went to the market. So this is irregular, an irregular form. This is also in the lexicon that you have stored in your brain. So this is how the lexicon works. Syntax then takes the words, the pieces from the lexicon, and puts them together. Morphology tells you how to change the form of the items from the lexicon if you put them together with syntax. Pragmatics tells you what people really mean by doing this. So these are the parts of linguistics. These are the main categories that come together to make language work, and that we as linguists can investigate. We can do research. Now let's move on to the two kinds of linguistics that we can do. Synchronic means at the same time. Chronic, from Greek chronos, means time, and syn means together. So together at the same time. That means synchronic linguistics looks at data from different languages, in some cases, all languages that we can get data of. And I told you in the last lesson that there are more than 7,000 languages in the world, which means, of course, there's a lot of data to look at. When doing synchronic linguistics, we just have to collect as much data as possible. And then we can compare, we can describe and compare the structures of these languages in terms of phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, lexicon, and other things. So we take all the linguistic categories and we look at data from as many languages as possible, and we compare it. Now, how do we get data for these languages? First, there is lots of published texts in many languages. In others, there is nothing at all. Now, with online publication, it's easier for many societies to publish in their own language. We can use newspapers, we can use stories, songs, poems, whatever. Whatever we can find of a language can serve as a data or a data set. Then we can do field work. We can go to villages, we can go to communities and ask people questions about their languages. We can ask them to tell us stories. So this is called field work. And this is one of the fun parts of doing linguistics, actually, when you can really talk to people and not only sit in front of a computer and collect data online. Then we can do experiments with people. This is mostly done by showing people different pictures or words, and we can measure what's happening in the brains. We can actually measure neurological processes in the brain. And this gives us access to how people think, how people use language. Now, some examples of doing synchronic linguistics. We already saw that Chinese uses tones to make difference in meaning. Now, Chinese is not the only language that does it. English doesn't do it, other languages do it. So we can look at the map of the world and see where do we have languages that use tone in their phonological system. An example I give you here again from Thai. Thai has 5 different tones, and there are some words, some syllables that occur in all 5 tones with different meanings. So you have mai, which means microphone, English loanword. Mai means new, mai, not, mai or not, question marker like Burmese la, and mai means silk. So we have 5 different tones with 5 different meanings in Thai. And you can see Southeast Asia, where Thai and Burmese are spoken, and East Asia with Chinese, are actually hotspots of tone languages. In Europe, there isn't really much going on in terms of tones. There's a little bit in Swedish and Norwegian, and in the Baltic languages, Lithuanian and Latvian, they do have some tones, but not really much. So white dot means no tones, red dot means tones. And then another hotspot is Central and Western Africa, where you have tones, and Central America. So doing synchronic linguistics, we can look at where do we find tones in languages, what areas of the world. Then we can try to figure out why. Why do these languages have tones and others don't? Another thing we can look at is classifiers. Some languages use classifiers. Again, examples here from Thai. For 2 houses in Thai, you say บ้าน2 หลัง. So you use หลัง as a classifier to count houses. You cannot say 2 บ้าน. Again, marked here with the star with the asterisk to mark it as wrong, ungrammatical. For 2 friends, you say เพื่อน2 คน. Kon is classifier for humans, as opposed to lang, classifier for houses. And again, we can look at the world map, and we see that Southeast Asia, including the Indonesian area, is a hotspot for classifier languages. Then again, Northern or Northwestern America, and some in Central America. So synchronic linguistics again tells us where we have languages using classifiers. Another thing we can look at is word order distribution. All the dots in red here mean you have subject, verb, object order. Like in English, the girl eats rice. The blue dots mean the verb comes at the end of the sentence, like the girl rice eats, which is not correct in English, but in Burmese you would say that. Sare comes always at the end of the sentence. Almost always. We'll look at this on Friday. So you see there are some places like Africa and Europe, Southeast Asia, where most languages have subject, verb, object order. Then other places like the Himalayas and India, and also many places in North and South America, have the verb at the end of the sentence. Subject, object, verb, like Burmese. Burmese actually here belongs to the Indian area, not to the Southeast Asian area. So these were just a few examples, what we can do with, or what we can look at in synchronic linguistics. the aim of doing synchronic linguistics is we want to understand how languages in general are similar or different to each other. Where do we find what? Where do we find what features of language? So how geography interacts with the distribution of language features. We saw the maps and we saw those hotspots, so we can start thinking about why do we find this in certain areas? Why do we find other things in other areas? Synchronic linguistics also helps us to understand how human societies in general express ideas. So this is about language and thinking. Language can help us understand how humans think. We cannot look at thinking directly, but language is a very good tool to help us look at it. And the final point here, we want to look at how culture and language are related. We will look at this in more detail in the lesson on language and society. So how is language used in a culture? What is the importance of language in a culture? How do language and culture interact? This we can find out, or we can hope to find out, by doing synchronic linguistics. Then the other way of doing linguistics is diachronic linguistics. Again, chronic from Greek chronos, time. Dia means through. So we do linguistics through time. We travel through time and look at how languages change and how they belong together in families. If you look at the bottom line here of this graph, if you have the English word father, and you compare this with modern German Vater, they sound pretty similar. In German, V is the same as F. In some words, the sound F is spelled with a V, in others with F. No logic behind it, it's just German orthography. So, Vater. And Icelandic, Iceland, the small island between Europe and North America, the language spoken there, Icelandic, uses fadir for father. So we have father, vater, fadir, and you hear the sounds are pretty similar. So linguists found out that these languages, German, English, and Icelandic, belong to the Germanic family. You're in the middle. And in Proto-Germanic, the male parent was called fader. And fader developed into English father, German vater, and Icelandic fadir. So by doing diachronic linguistics, we can see that English, German, and Icelandic belong together, are sister languages, and they belong to the Germanic group. But now if you look at the Germanic fader, and we compare this with Latin pater, which also means father, or Sanskrit Pitar, which in Pali became Pita, which you probably know also in Burmese. We see these are similar again. So they belong to the same language family. They are sister languages again on this level, and they all belong to the Indo-European language family. So by doing diachronic linguistics, we can see the history of English through Germanic to Indo-European. And Indo-European goes back around 8,000 years. So we have the history of the English language over 8,000 years. We don't have inscriptions, we have no documents of this, but still we can say a lot about these languages and the families. So historical linguistics, with historical linguistics, people could find out a lot about what language families are there in the world. And here you see some families at the moment. Actually, this is the present distribution. And you see the Indo-European languages, which were originally spoken in Europe and also in this area, in India and Persia, Iran today, and Europe. This is the original place where Indo-European languages were spoken. Now you also have them in North America, in South America, and all the way to the Pacific in Russia, because Russian is spoken everywhere there. So this is the Indo-European language family. Another language family is here the red one. This is the Sino-Tibetan family. And there you have Chinese, and you have Burmese and other languages spoken in Burma, Thailand, and the Himalayas. We will look at this in more detail on Friday. So with historical linguistics, linguists were able to figure out different language families, language groups that share the same origin. Why do we want to do that? Why could that be interesting? Why do we want to do historical linguistics? Well, if we can reconstruct older languages for which we have no documents, we can still say a lot about these old cultures. So imagine there is a language group and we can reconstruct for the parent language words for sea and snow. Then we can be pretty sure that this language was spoken in a cold region near a sea or an ocean. So maybe somewhere in Northern Europe or Northern America. Because if we have the word for sea and snow in the original language, the people must have known these things. For another language group, maybe we can reconstruct the words for banana, elephant, and tiger, but not for snow. So this language probably was spoken somewhere in a tropical hot region like Southeast Asia. If you don't have any snow, if it never snows in your place, you don't need a word for snow. So by reconstructing, by looking at what words we find in the original language, just by comparing the languages we have today, we can say a lot about the culture of these old people. Apart from the environment culture, we can also say something about the material and social culture of the old people. So if we can reconstruct wheel and wagon and horse for an old language, like we can for Indo-European, then we know that these people 8,000 years ago had already invented the wheel and the wagon, and they used horses to ride or maybe to drag wagons. If in a language you can find the words, or we can reconstruct the words for king or chief and servant, we know that there was some hierarchy in this people, that this community, this society, a few thousand years ago, we don't know them, we never saw them, we have no documents, but still we can tell that they had the hierarchy in the society. Some people were higher, some people were lower in their society. So this we can find out by comparing modern languages and reconstructing old languages and old cultures through these languages. Then also interesting is to find out how people, how societies migrated, how they moved from one place to another. Because then we can explain many things about present-day cultures and present-day languages. So of course, this goes both ways. So it's interesting to know, if you look at Europe, who was there first? Where did the people come from who settled in Europe? Where did the people come from who settled in the Americas, in Northern America, Southern America? The Europeans are very recent in America, only a few hundred years. Before them, There are already people speaking other languages. We have no documents. The languages are still spoken there in Northern America, Indian languages, but they have no inscriptions, no historical documents. But just comparing their languages, we can find out that they migrated from Asia, from Siberia, maybe around 20,000 years ago. So this we can find out by looking at the languages. And this is what makes diachronic historical linguistics interesting. So this was a very brief overview of the general ideas of linguistics, linguistic categories, ways of doing linguistics. And we will, as I told you, look at Myanmar, have a closer look at Myanmar and Burmese language in the lesson on Friday. So I hope you will have some time to think about how you can use all this for Burmese. And we talked about descriptive and prescriptive linguistics on Monday. Of course, now I'm mostly talking about descriptive linguistics. We talk about how languages are actually used and spoken by the people, and not what the Myanmar Zapwe tells people to do. We will look at this on Friday. So I think there is time now for you if you have any questions, if anything was not clear. And again, of course, you may ask questions in Burmese or English, or Mon if you prefer. Are there any questions? No one.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Tehnin.
Yes. I would like to know phonetics and phonology, the differences between phonetics and phonology. Are they the same?
Okay. Phonetics and phonology. Well, you see here, it's the phonetic alphabet, not the phonological alphabet. So there is overlap, of course, but it's not the same thing. So phonology is about the system of sounds. Phonology is about which sounds does a language use to make the distinction in meaning. This is phonology. Phonetics is about how sounds are pronounced, how they're articulated. So you can say in English, port and sport, the P in these two cases, they are the same for phonology because it's not important. There's no difference in meaning if you pronounce it the wrong way. If you say port or sport, it's still the same meaning. So the system in phonology is still the same. But for phonetics, it's different. They're pronounced differently. So you have pa against pa. So you can say in phonetics, they are different. In phonology, they are the same. In linguistics, we use the square brackets, as you see here, for phonetic reading, and we use the slashes for phonological. So pa and ba are different in terms of phonetics. They're differently pronounced. The articulation is different, but they're the same for phonology. So this is the basic difference between phonetics and phonology. Thank you. Is there anything else anyone would like to ask or know?
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm information science student. So I think I'm doing like the artificial intelligence and natural language processing. So what I found is like we need word representation in Burmese to process. However, Burmese have like no definite rule to define what is a word or not. I think so it is really difficult to continue the process, natural language processing. So how should we define what is a word or not in Burmese?
What the word is in Burmese? Well, we will have a closer look at this on Friday, but it's very difficult because there are different kinds of words. Actually, there is a phonological word and grammatical word, and very often they do not overlap, especially in Burmese. It's some people, when they write Burmese in transcript, like in grammar's textbooks, Learning Burmese for English speakers, they write all syllables basically separately. So it looks, it's all different words. If you look at the Burmese dictionary, everything is listed, although it's not a word really. If you have a thing like Masabu, how many words is Masabu? You can look up ma in the dictionary, you can look up sa, you can look up bu. So this would mean it's 3 words. But first, you cannot use ma on its own. So if I ask you samala, the answer cannot only be ma or ma bu. So ma is not a word, ma is a prefix, and bu is a suffix. But they're listed in the dictionary, even in the official Myanmar dictionary. So you have to be very careful at analyzing expressions in Burmese to find out what really is a word. We will look at this again on Friday in more detail.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Actually, I have one more question. So,
yes.
Can you explain about syllable? I already had like syllable, but I don't know what that really means.
A syllable. Okay, that's another tricky one. Syllable is a combination of sounds that are pronounced together as a unit. Now, in some languages, syllables are very important. Syllables are a unit that almost overlaps with meaning, or one syllable is one meaning. This is not the case in all languages. So in English, for example, eat is one syllable, and it's also one word. It has one meaning. But if you say eating, it's 2 syllables, and the syllable eat is broken up into E and T. So you have eating. The syllable is, it's not very clear for many linguists how important syllable is as a unit. On the other hand, for native speakers, syllable is the unit that is most easily identified, because syllable is when you can make a break between what you speak and you can make a break. And languages differ very much in how their syllables are structured. So some languages, like Burmese, for example, allows at most 2 consonants and 1 vowel to make a syllable. You cannot have a consonant here in Burmese, in spoken Burmese. In English, if you look at sport, you have SP, 2 consonants, then you have a vowel, and you have RT. You have 2 consonants at the end. So languages differ very much in what syllables they allow. But then again, it's not really clear how important this is for linguistics. Any other things anyone would like to ask?
Hello, yeah.
Yes.
I want to put out amazing Nova. I want to know your opinion. So, you know, Nova media station. ဒီမှာအကယ်၍ပေါ့နော်ဒီကိုနတ်ချင်းနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီး okay ကျမတို့တိုင်းရင်းသားဘာသာစကားပေါ့နော်ဒီ Burmese ဘာသာစကား Burmese မဟုတ်ပေမဲ့တိုင်းရင်းသားလူမျိုးနွယ်စုတွေမှာဘာသာစကားပေါ့နော်စပြီးတည်ထွင်တဲ့အခါမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျမတို့ဒီကိုနတ်ချက်ကိုဒီ English ကိုနတ်ချက်ကိုပေါ့နော်ယူပြီးတော့ကျမတို့ဒီဘာသာစကားကိုတည်ထွင်ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့လိုမျိုးဘာသာစကားတည်ထွင်ပြီးတဲ့အခါမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒီအနည်းပေါ့နော်ဒီခုနချက်ကိုတည်ထွင်ဒီအင်္ဂလိပ်ရဲ့ခုနချက်ကိုယူပြီးတော့တည်ထွင်တဲ့အတွက်ကျမတို့ရဲ့ဒီတိုင်းရင်းသားဘာသာစကားမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒါပေရေးသားတဲ့အခါမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အမားတွေများပေါ့နော်ဘယ်လိုပြောမလဲအမားတွေပို့ပြီးတော့များတာများဖြစ်နိုင်မလားဟိုပို့ပြီးတော့အကျိုးရှိမလားဆိုတာကိုကျမသိချင်ပါတယ်ရှင်
Okay. Now I told you that the phonological system is different for each language. The phonetics, of course, is also different for each language. So if you want to study about Bainda Badazaga in any country, like ethnic languages, local languages, it's very important to understand the way they pronounce the sounds, so the phonetics. And it's also very important then to figure out the phonology. This is something that is not easy to do, but it's very important in many aspects for descriptive and prescriptive grammar or linguistics. So I did fieldwork in Myanmar with different languages. Many of these languages are not written. Then first you have to listen to the people, you have to record and figure out what sounds do you hear? What sounds are there? And just write as you hear it. And then you have to figure out the system. Then you have to try to figure out which sounds are important. Like in Mon, bat, or glern are different words. In the beginning, you don't know. Maybe some people just speak a bit more breathy, other people speak a bit more creaky or clear voice. Maybe sometimes I say glern, sometimes glern. But in order to figure out, you have to find minimal pairs. You have to find pairs of words that are distinguished only by this difference. And in Mon, you then find glern, which means to come, and glern, which means a boat. Then you know, okay, is important. So it doesn't help much to look at English or Burmese phonology or phonetics to find out about this. You have to look at each language in its own way. But you have to practice with languages you know. So it's good to practice with English and Burmese, and then you can apply this knowledge to other languages. And when you know how different groups speak in their own language, then you will also know why their Burmese sometimes sounds different from standard Burmese. So Burmese spoken in Mandalay sounds pretty different from Burmese spoken in Molamyang. You may have noticed. In Molamyang, in Malay, it's rather so it sounds like a pretty different language, yeah? And of course, in Molamyang, there is Mon influence in Burmese. The people there speak Burmese with some Mon sounds. So it's very important to know about the phonology of Mon to understand how people speak in Molamyang. Okay. No more questions. Everything clear? if you do have more questions, you can always write me email. You have my email address, right? It's still here. So mj@mathiasjenny.ch. Whenever you have questions or want to get more information, feel free to write me at any time. Okay, if there's no more questions, thanks again for joining today. And I look forward to seeing you on Friday. And then we can have discussions, I hope, about what's happening in Burmese and Myanmar about these languages and linguistics. Have a good time. Stay safe from all dangers that are around there. And see you again soon.
Okay,ပါဆရာကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်ဆရာ
Okay. See you soon, teacher. Thank you.
ဒီပါဒီပါ Yeah, I think